I'm sure you've heard the news. Another case, unsolved. Another criminal walks free. But what if you could see behind the headlines? Welcome to Crime Chronicles HQ. Here, we don't just tell stories, we peel back the layers of the world's most disturbing mysteries. From chilling, unsolved murders, to the twisted minds of serial killers, to the cold cases that haunt detectives for decades. We break down crime scenes, examine forensic evidence, and reveal secrets others miss. Each week, we dig deeper, bringing you expert analysis, shocking discoveries, and new perspectives. Think you can handle the truth? Hit subscribe, smash that bell, and join our community of true crime detectives. Because at Crime Chronicles HQ, the case is never closed. The air on that October evening was crisp. It carried the scent of autumn leaves and the promise of a new beginning. Tomorrow, I was supposed to marry the woman I thought was my soulmate, Sarah. The tux was hanging perfectly pressed in my closet, a symbol of the future I had so carefully planned. But a nagging feeling, a cold knot in my stomach, told me something was wrong. Sarah had been distant all week, her smiles not quite reaching her eyes. She said it was just pre-wedding jitters, a normal bout of nerves before the big day. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But my gut, that internal voice we so often ignore, was screaming at me that something was terribly off. I decided to surprise her. I bought her favorite flowers, a bouquet of white lilies, the same kind she was to carry down the aisle. I imagined her surprise turning into a warm embrace, reassuring me that my fears were just that, fears. I drove to her apartment, the one we were soon to leave for our new home. Each red light felt like an eternity, my anxiety growing with every passing second. I kept telling myself I was being ridiculous, that I was letting stress get the better of me. After all, this was Sarah, the woman who had seen me at my worst and loved me anyway, the woman I trusted with my entire world. When I arrived, I noticed her car was there, along with another I recognized instantly. It belonged to Jessica, her maid of honor and best friend since childhood. I felt a small wave of relief. Of course, Jessica was with her. They were probably having a last-minute girls' night, sharing stories and calming each other's nerves before the wedding. I smiled to myself, feeling foolish for my earlier paranoia. I walked up to the door, the bouquet in hand, ready to laugh off my silly insecurities and join them for a moment. The lights were dim inside, and I could hear soft music playing, which seemed perfectly normal for a relaxed evening. The door was unlocked. I figured she must have been expecting me to drop by eventually. I pushed it open quietly, wanting my entrance to be a pleasant surprise. But the surprise was all mine. The scene that greeted me was not one of innocent friendship. It was a portrait of the deepest betrayal imaginable. There, in the living room, was Sarah, my fiancée, entangled with Jessica, her best friend. The lilies fell from my hand, scattering across the floor like the shattered pieces of my heart. The world stopped. The air was sucked from my lungs. It was a nightmare, but I was wide awake. The woman I was going to pledge my life to tomorrow was betraying me in the most shocking way possible. Time seemed to warp and bend in that horrifying moment. My mind couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. It was like watching a movie scene that didn't make any sense, a glitch in the fabric of my reality. The music that had seemed so innocent from outside now sounded sinister, a soundtrack to my world crumbling down around me. My first thought wasn't anger, but a profound and hollow confusion. Was I hallucinating? Was this some kind of sick joke? I stood there, frozen in the doorway, unable to speak or move, my brain desperately trying to find an explanation that didn't involve the complete destruction of my trust and love. The shock slowly gave way to a cold, creeping numbness. It started in my fingertips and spread through my entire body, leaving me feeling like an empty shell. I looked at Sarah, the woman whose face I knew better than my own, and saw a stranger. Who was this person? How could the love we shared, the future we built, be a lie? Every memory we had ever created together flashed before my eyes, now tainted by this single, devastating moment. Our first date, our engagement, the laughter, the promises, it all felt like a performance, a grand deception with me as the unsuspecting fool. Then, the heartbreak hit me like a physical blow. It was a deep, searing pain in my chest, so intense I thought my heart might actually stop beating. Tears welled up in my eyes, not just of sadness, but of a profound sense of loss. I wasn't just losing a fiancé. I was losing my best friend, my confidant, my future. The life I had envisioned just minutes ago, a wife, a family, growing old together, had evaporated into thin air. It was replaced by a gaping void, an emptiness that felt vast and terrifying. The person I had built my entire world around had just taken a sledgehammer to its very foundation. Finally, the numbness and heartbreak began to curdle into a hot, blinding rage. How could she do this? How could she do this to me, to us, the day before our wedding, and with her best friend? The betrayal was twofold, a stab in the back from the two people I thought I could count on the most. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by my own ragged breathing. They had finally noticed me standing there, their faces a mixture of shock and guilt. The quiet before the storm was over. The confrontation I never in a million years expected to have was about to begin. "What is this?" The words came out as a choked whisper, barely audible but carrying the weight of my entire shattered world. My voice was raspy, torn apart by the agony constricting my throat. Sarah scrambled to cover herself, her eyes wide with a panic I had never seen before. Jessica just stared, her face pale and frozen in a mask of pure terror. They looked like two children caught doing something they knew was unforgivable. There were no excuses, no explanations that could possibly mend this catastrophic breach of trust. The air was thick with their guilt and my suffocating pain. Sarah started to speak, a string of incoherent apologies and desperate pleas falling from her lips. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered, the most cliché and insulting words she could have possibly chosen. "Not what it looks like," I repeated, my voice rising to a roar fueled by pure, unadulterated fury. "I'm standing here, 24 hours before I'm supposed to marry you, and you're with her. What else could it possibly look like, Sarah?" My hands were clenched into fists at my sides, every muscle in my body tensed and vibrating with rage. I wanted to scream, to break something, to unleash the storm that was raging inside me. The argument escalated into a chaotic mess of accusations and tears. I demanded answers, but all I got were more lies and pathetic justifications. She claimed she was confused, that she was scared of the commitment, but none of it mattered. The betrayal was absolute. Jessica, who had been silent until now, tried to intervene. "We didn't mean for you to find out," she said softly, as if that made it any better. That single sentence sent me over the edge. It wasn't the act itself they regretted, but the fact that they had been caught. The deception was planned, calculated, and that was the cruelest cut of all. Suddenly, another man entered the room from the back bedroom, a man I didn't know. He was tall, imposing, and his eyes were cold and hard. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice calm but menacing. The situation spiraled out of control. Who was this guy? The chaos and confusion intensified. He moved to stand between me and the two women, a self-appointed protector. My argument with Sarah was no longer the focus. A new, more immediate threat had just entered the equation, and the room, already filled with emotional turmoil, was now charged with a terrifying and dangerous energy. My world narrowed to the man standing before me. The argument with Sarah, the betrayal, it all faded into the background as a primal sense of danger took over. "You need to leave," he said, his hand reaching behind his back. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear. I didn't want to leave. I wanted answers. I wanted to understand the wreckage of my life. But before I could say another word, he pulled out a gun. The metallic gleam of the weapon under the dim apartment lights seemed to suck all the hope out of the room. It was surreal, a scene from a violent movie I had no business being in. There was no time to react, no time to run. The first shot was a deafening explosion that ripped through the air, followed by a searing, white-hot pain in my shoulder. I stumbled back, my mind reeling in disbelief. He shot me. He actually shot me. Then came another shot, and another, and another. My body convulsed with each impact, each bullet a new wave of agony. I fell to the floor, my legs giving out from under me. I could hear Sarah screaming, a distant, muffled sound in the ringing chaos of my ears. I tried to crawl, to move, to get away, but my body wouldn't obey. Lying on the floor in a rapidly expanding pool of my own blood, I felt my life slipping away. The pain was excruciating, a fire burning through every nerve. But underneath the pain, there was a strange clarity. I thought about my parents, my brother, the life I was supposed to have. I refused to let this be the end. I refused to die on the floor of my cheating fiancé's apartment at the hands of a stranger. A fierce, desperate will to live surged through me. I focused on my breathing, trying to stay conscious, fighting against the darkness that was creeping in at the edges of my vision. The last thing I remember before blacking out was the sound of sirens wailing in the distance, getting closer and closer. It was a sound of hope in the middle of my darkest hour. I didn't know if they would reach me in time. 13 bullets. The doctors would later tell me it was a miracle I survived. As my consciousness faded, one thought remained, crystal clear in the fog of pain and chaos. I will not let this be my story's end. I will survive this. I have to survive this. The fight for my life had only just begun. Waking up in the hospital was a disorienting experience. The sterile smell, the rhythmic beeping of machines, and a dull, throbbing pain that radiated through my entire body were my new reality. I was alive. That fact alone was a victory, but it was just the first step on a long and arduous road to recovery. The physical journey was grueling, filled with surgeries, physical therapy, and the constant battle to reclaim control over my own body. Each small movement, each step I took, was a testament to my resilience and the incredible work of the medical team who pieced me back together. But the physical scars were nothing compared to the emotional ones. The betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. During the long nights in the hospital, my mind would replay the events of that evening over and over again. The image of Sarah and Jessica, the shock, the anger, the cold eyes of the shooter. It was a relentless loop of trauma. I had to learn to navigate a world where the person I trusted most had brought me to the brink of death. Therapy became my lifeline, a safe space to unpack the layers of grief, anger, and post-traumatic stress. It was here that I began the slow, painful process of healing my shattered heart and mind. Recovery taught me a profound lesson about the nature of love and trust. I learned that true love doesn't deceive, and real trust isn't something that can be so easily broken. The love I thought I had with Sarah was an illusion, a fragile construct that shattered at the first sign of trouble. I realized that my own worth was never tied to her affection or her fidelity. My strength came from within, from the will to survive that kept me fighting on that apartment floor. I learned to trust my own instincts, that gut feeling I had ignored, and to place my faith in myself above all others. Today, years later, I am a survivor. The scars, both visible and invisible, remain as a reminder of how far I've come. I have found a new sense of purpose, a deeper appreciation for the gift of life. The path forward wasn't easy, but I chose to move on, not with bitterness, but with hope. Betrayal and trauma do not have to define you. You have the power to rewrite your story, to rise from the ashes, and to build a new life founded on self-respect, resilience, and an unwavering belief in a better tomorrow. You can't get it right if you're not ready to get real about what happened and choose to move forward.